foundation for the change is being laid from many different angles. And as investors, it's our responsibility to dig deep in and understand the potential disruption and opportunities. A successful investor will be able to read between the lines, connect the dots, and invest early. Rippleworks is a foundation for financial innovation, and just by looking at the team and reading through their mission and studying some related publication, we can understand beyond the hype. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where we discuss crypto and science behind investing regularly. This tweet from XRP Crypto Wolf actually shows how things are kind of changing and how it will be looking like. We support further integration of cryptocurrency into the financial system, allowing major financial institutions to hold these currencies. Right now, this is actually directly coming from a congressman, right? So it is becoming into this public arena where politicians, common man are actually getting to understand what cryptocurrencies are, how these can actually look, and just at the beginning we can actually see this: a total of 146k pending transactions on Ethereum network. Now, as highlighted by Willy Wonka, you can actually see HODL XRP. Why? Because it has that much scalability to actually take in all those transactions, because it solves these issues within seconds, right? Now, different news are actually popping out showing us that the fundamental of the entire industry, the adoption rate, are actually increasing day by day. And these words from David Shaw's kind of highlights us that it's you don't have to actually compare with other projects which have entirely different use case. If there are projects which are targeting on the same use case, then it's okay to compare, because that's kind of a competition, right? But if the use case is entirely different, then you don't actually have to go through that kind of stuff, stress yourselves and waste your time. XRP is not trying to be the same as every other asset. It's a unique distribution and a unique use case, so you have to actually understand. And when we say that uniqueness, you have to understand it's being highlighted from United Nations, one program to another program, World Bank documents, BIS, and all other supranational organizations like IMF and all. So whenever we read through this and understand that the adoption rate is changing and the wind of change is here, keep an eye on the charts as well. In yesterday's video, we actually discussed about this, and say 2 or 3 days back, when the price of Ethereum was around 270, 275, we actually talked about that the price was at a resistance level, and if we break out, the possibility of going to the upside will be huge. And it was actually followed by a break by a bullish shaped candle like this. And after that, XRP followed that and just broke above that. Now, if you look that on a daily chart, you can understand it's kind of a similar thing, but just a bit difference in the timing factor. XRP went through that moving average and long-term resistance. So now, if you look at Ethereum, you can actually understand it came a bit down. Now it is kind of consolidating there, and if you move in, zoom in closer and look, you can actually see the price is kind of following or respecting the 20-day moving average for Ether. And if it is actually getting a bounce instead of going back to 50-day moving average for the support, then it will be a sign that the price may actually move higher for the entire alt caps. So when we actually look at that, here in the XRP, you can actually see the price actually went up to 0.224, and now it has actually retraced back to 0.215. So if you look XRP on an hourly, or it depends upon how you actually want to view that, the price actually came just below the 20-day moving average, went above and retested the 20-day moving average. It couldn't actually go above that, it came back below. Now 50-day moving average is acting as a support, so unless we actually move below the 200-day moving average, it's still a bullish sign, because we just broke above a long-term resistance line, which in a daily is actually a significant achievement, right? Now, we were actually talking about a 3-day chart, weekly chart, and different long-term perspectives. Here also we are still bullish, or we are just entering into the bullish territory. Now, technicals, when you look at that, you have to actually look at a lot of different aspects. Now in the weekly chart, we just reached the 50-day moving average, which is currently acting as a resistance. So if we manage to break above that area, that's 0.226, that's going to be a change in the wind again. Now, when you look at the MACD, you can see we are just moving towards the positive range. We have not yet reached the positive range in weekly chart. Now, along with that technicals, when we actually look at the change in the entire landscape of fintechs and digitization, you can actually see this is another step. WhatsApp is actually going to bring a lot more financial services into India. Now, that's a long story, right? Now, this is a tweet from Jungle Inc. and showing there's a lot of economic issues, and majority we're actually looking at economic shocks. And this is an old video from IMF showing, in a PDF file from IMF previously, they were actually talking about the economic shock absorbers. So how can these things be evolved? And when we try to connect these dots, we can actually see Polysign is going to be a digital bank which will actually allow institutional investors to come in and play a role in this. And when we look at the other side, from David Schwartz, he's actually saying, I wish I could actually tell you. Now, that was from a previous question in an interview in which he was saying, no, I am in an NDA agreement, so I can't actually tell you that. But it's actually cool things happening in the background. Now, when you actually look at the types of things which is happening with Ripple or XRP, the asset, you have Polysign in one end, you can see PayID at the other end, you can see Moja Loop at the other end, you can see Zoom banking app at the other end, and with all these networks, you can see much more adoption rate going. It's not only one company which is the RippleNet. Even there are other steps which are kind of indirectly related to this. Say, for example, Rippleworks. I haven't actually previously looked much deep into this one, Rippleworks. But when you actually go through this, you can actually understand they are working for the financial innovation and financial inclusion side. When you go to the United Nations refugee document, where they talk about the disruption and digital revolution, you can actually see they actually use the document from Rippleworks. Now, this is a study published by the Stanford University, and if you look at that, the lecturer here is actually the CEO and co-founder of Rippleworks. Now, in that document, when you go through this, they detail about the human rights and financial inclusion. That is one area where the IMF, World Bank, and others are concentrating, right? But now with these documents, we have an idea. But now, yes, majority may not actually agree on this, or may have a negative attitude towards this, because this side is actually supported by Bill and Melinda Gates also. Now, majority of them don't actually like that kind of aspect, but this is the reality which is turning in step by step. Now, as we move further, we can actually see when we talk about Polysign, this is something different, right? Polysign is a company which is allowed to give federal loans above $150,000. So when we actually look at that, you can actually see $350,000 to $1 million from Polysign. Now, the date of approval is back in April 27, and as of now, you can see that it is still functioning. So as we move into the pandemic and it is deepening, the crisis is deepening, there are requirements for bailouts, right? Coronavirus bailout, which it is termed as. So as we look that, we can understand one thing: the distribution of money is actually increasing step by step. As the virus is kind of persisting now, the economies are actually going down, and these kind of adoption are actually acting as one or the other financial shock absorbers. Now, this is a reply for all of this, in which we can say that crypto custody is the key, right? Now, July 26, 2020, it's actually something fresh. The answer to what is XRP may decide its crypto custody future. So that means if it is classified as a security, then, it's the case over. But as we understand from, say, European side, Asian side, they all see the value in the utility of that asset and understand the use case and how it solves that particular problem. So as we can actually see that this is happening, US will be coming in. Now, we actually were celebrating once the OCC was actually saying banks can actually hold cryptocurrencies. But as of now, there is only clarity for Bitcoin and Ether. And if you look at that mining side, the Chinese aspect and all, you can just say that the congressman or the politicians, regulators here in US, it's kind of supporting the money flow into China. When they, on the parallel side, which they talk like we are on a war with them, we are not going to let them do this, do that, blah blah blah. But behind the scenes, these are happening. At the same time, one of a document which we read through here in the Great Reset video, a couple of videos back, was like US has the most to lose by this kind of an adoption, so they will delay it as much as possible and try to make it into a view where they can have the most. Instead of losing, they can actually grasp more from this one. Now this kind of, we talked about the e-commerce platform Zoom and how it's going to actually change the entire landscape, and here Ripple's director of product launches XRP payments and e-commerce platform. So when we actually read through this, you have to actually understand now the interoperability layer. One more app, that's PayID, is there, so you can actually address it using that one. In a new Twitter thread, Craig David says Payburner is designed to make it extremely easy to send and receive instant global payments. So that is another step towards easy access to these kind of applications, because when previously we used to see arguments like it's really hard for an new guy to understand how you can actually access your wallets, how you can actually send these payments from one to another. Now these kind of applications are coming out and making it much more easy. So once it becomes easy to access and use, and user friendliness is the main thing which draws more customers in, right? So the adoption rate will only increase from this point onwards, and once the wallets are actually coming out, the digital use case are increasing, automatically the area of price push will increase. Now there are analysts who are actually talking about the price pullback, which is currently looks like likely, because as they understand the chart, they're looking at like the price actually broke above this one, it retested there, it went to the upside. Now it may actually correct to the downside. That's what they are looking at. Now different views come from different analysts, they talk about it on a different view. Now this is kind of a long-term perspective in which you can actually see XRP BTC pay is breaking above the long-term resistance line. So based on here, it can actually move up. Now if it doesn't actually come back below and retest this area, the chances are that the price is going to be moving much higher from where it is now, because this particular support line previously will be acting as a resistance line now, and if we manage to cross that, then the next level will be here, which is around 2,900 satoshis there. Now central banks drive demand for BTC by devaluing their currencies. Now majority of holders of crypto thinks that they are BTC holders, BTC maxis and all, but altcoins have a sufficient amount of the market share as well. When the currency is devaluing in one particular nation, say for example if you consider Venezuela, what happened there, or Argentina, you can actually understand once the fiat currencies are devaluing, they need that purchasing power. As their fiat currencies are going down, the purchasing power is going down the toilet, they actually need something to hold on. And that's where it's hard to actually go into gold. It's hard to gold is something which is kind of it's really hard to actually break in pieces and use it like that, whereas BTC or this technology of blockchain enable you to do that. So one by one, as we see the crisis deepening and fiat currencies losing their value, the chances are more for newcomers to enter into this market. And as we understand that the market is actually preparing for a new bull run or the new market cycle, it may actually make it more fantasizable for all those newcomers, because if someone is actually considering to jump into this market and they can see that the price is appreciating where their fiat currency is actually going down, say for example you are considering dollar, and say for last week Ethereum was around $234 per coin and now it's 310. So if they consider it based on the purchasing power in dollar terms, then for them it's actually cool to be on an asset which is appreciating instead of being on a fiat currency which is depreciating on a daily basis. And as we talk about a new market cycle and entering into new one, it comes like, what is the expected price in next 2 years? What do you expect in next 5 years? What do you expect by the end of this cycle? And we are actually seeing articles popping out like showing it may hit 10,000 according to a $1 billion forecast posted on Forbes. Now, how from the current point where it is 0.215, $10,000 is too much to say for at least next 3 to 5 cycles. Each cycle is taking around at least 3 years. So if you consider that, that's a long way around. If you are looking at 15 to 20 years, maybe it's possible. But for the near future, it looks really bleak and the chances are really, really less. Considering where you are right now, which is 0.25, if you are looking at 10,000% in gains, that is actually okay, because if you just measure from where we are towards that 10,000 percentage of gains, it's just $22, and that is kind of possible. If you just look at how the price actually fluctuated from last time, it looks really easy to reach around even $100, the three-digit marks for XRP, and say at the same time Ethereum may be reaching around $10,000. If it's for Ethereum, it's okay, because the last time all-time high was $1,400, and reaching 10,000 won't be that much of a difficulty. It's just 10x from there. Considering how BTC did 80x, considering how XRP did that 140x from the bottom of last cycle, that is possible for Ether. Whereas for XRP, you can actually even target 3 digits, say $100 or $200, $300. That may be possible in next 1 to 2 market cycle. But when we see 10k or $10,000, I'm not sure whether that's happening in the near time. But these are something which can be achieved when you look back at Bitcoin and you see it started from way below at 1 and it reached $10,000. But it took around 10 years to actually do that. So if you look at that type of a market cycle based on that type of patience and waiting till 10 years, a decade more, then it may be possible. But when we look at the adoption rate and how things are actually evolving, it may not actually take 3 market cycle. Maybe it will end up there in just 2 market cycle. We can't actually say that, but the adoption rate is actually pushing in more of a newcomers, and that may actually decide the future of XRP. Now, I would actually like to ask you guys, what do you guys actually think about these type of articles which kind of directly points out to $10,000 for an asset which is currently priced at 0.215. If you guys received value from this content, please do support the channel, hit that like button. And if you are new here, help support the channel grow, hit that subscribe button. I'll meet you guys on the next one. Bye for now.